Alright, now we're going to go through the cleanup process. Now technically this object is mostly clean. There does still need to be some of the regular cleanup, like deleting history, freezing transforms, and all that stuff. But I want to make a couple of changes that may not be necessarily about making it clean, but are just about good topology and good practices. So first, I'm going to remove all these edges where I'm creating the triangles. So this is creating n-gons, but only for a moment. I also may want to rebuild part of this object so that it works a lot more efficiently. So first off, I want to get rid of these n-gons right here, and the easiest way to do that is to continue an edge through the form. So I'm going to do that. I know that's split right in the center at 50%, so down here I should be able to do the same thing. So by holding down Control and Shift, because I know I've still got it snapped to 50%, if you don't see that, you can open up the modeling toolkit, make sure snap step is at 50. I can left click and create that shape. Now it didn't go all the way through because of the n-gon issue. But having that in place, now I can click and drag, and then hit enter to close that. And do the same thing on this side to be able to create what I want. Now I should be able to do the same thing through the form here, but I'm also going to show you another problem that's presenting itself. So I'm going to do the same thing where, because I know it's right in the center, I will hold down Shift and Control and left click to create that edge loop right at that snap step of 50%. I can then come here and cut up. I can also come here and cut down. And so now I've got a model that's got good topology, and it's highly efficient, and it's clean. All right, everything's still in quad. So if I need to add additional information, like let's say I need to create an eave underneath the bottom of this house, I want to extend these edges, I can do that stuff very quickly by adding in information. I'm actually going to undo that, Control Z, because I don't necessarily need that at the moment, but it's something you can do. It helps make this process much easier as you're trying to create and develop. So focus on keeping things in quads and having good edge loops. Now, here's another issue where technically this is clean, but if you notice there's a problem where this form is buckling because those vertices aren't lining up to get a nice clean face. And on some objects, some organic objects, that, you know, it happens and it's part of the process because it has to deform across a larger surface. So you'll have smaller cuts in there to do that. But in this case, this is a house. I want this roof to line right up with that other roof. I want that to line up correctly. So what I can do is I can determine how high I want that. Well, there's actually a couple ways. So let me start with the first that would just be eyeballing it. So I can grab that. And if I hit the spacebar key to go in this 4 view mode, and spacebar key again to come to this front mode, I can just grab a single direction and drag that down until it lines up. And I can zoom way in and try and get that as close as possible. So that is a valid way, and it gets it, you know, most of the way there. Good enough for games, definitely. But there are other ways if you want to be even more efficient to be able to manage this problem. For example, if you want to make sure that it's exactly at a specific height in relationship to the other roof, you can use the snap step to accomplish that. So for example, if I turn on the multi-cut tool and I say, look, this needs to be 60% of the way up. Great. I will hold down the Shift key. And that's 60%, but that's the wrong direction. I want it to be 60% of the way up, and it's calculating from this point to this point, so I will actually Control Z to undo. And I will change that to 40%. Hold down the Shift key, and that snaps to 40% there. And you see it also has a snap there at 80%, but 40%. And then I can hit Enter. Now by doing that, I did not create an edge. I simply created a single vertice that I cut in. That vertice is going to act as a guide for me. In order to get this roof to line up, I can now hit the W key and holding down the V key for snap to point. You see snap to point turns on while I do that. Hold down the left mouse key to get it to the same height, and then the left mouse key again on this arrow to bring it in. For this side, I want to just snap up so that it lines up correctly. And now it is exactly lined up, with the exception that there's still a problem. So everything looks good here in object mode, But if I open up that cleanup options, once again, that's under Mesh Cleanup. With select matching polygons turned on and face with more than 4 sides, I hit apply, and you see I have 2 n-gons. Once again, that's because I left a vertice here. It's very important that you clean up your geometry. Make sure that there aren't any n-gons. For right now, work in quads, and then try and make sure that everything else is resolved as well. So let's do some final cleanup that are just some basic steps of cleanup. So I'll open up the attribute editor so that you can see some of this as it goes. I'm going to start by naming this object. This is low res house mesh. And that's a long name, so I could do something shortened like LR house mesh. And that updates the transform name as well as the mesh shape name. I then need to delete history, edit, delete all by type history, modify, freeze transforms to get all that cleaned out. But then I look at it and I want to make another change. I do have a problem. I don't want the house to be stuck partway into the ground. So how do I resolve this? Well, we use the tools that have already been covered. So I hit the D key so that I'm actually adjusting the pivot, hold down the V key, Victor, so I turn on snap to point, and I can adjust that point down to the base of the house. So I hit the D key again to get out of that mode. And now holding the X key, or snap to grid, I can drag this up into position. So the base of the house right in the center is right on the origin. And the pivot is at the origin. This is built at the origin at right angles and is clean. The naming's still good. I need to, once again, just out of habit, delete all by type history. And then with this object selected, remember, if it's not selected and I do the freeze transforms, so modify freeze transforms, it doesn't do anything. So I need to make sure that I have it selected. And you see right there, there's the translate that's changed. So I go modify freeze transforms. And so that's cleaned that up. The other step is to check the outliner. And so thankfully the outliner's all cleaned up. I have my one object here. So this is good to go. And the final step with this that I should have been doing all along, once again, I should have been saving iterations, but I didn't. But as a final step, I need to save the scene. So File, Save Scene As, and I will call this LR_house. And there you go. So take the new tool that you've used, the multi-cut tool, and also play around with hard and soft edges and explore and see what you can come up with. So where last module that you're going through, you may have just been using the extrude tool multiple times to create a shape. For example, something like this, where you may have gone, okay, well, I need to create this shape that has different forms. So I will extrude and pull that out, and then extrude and then pull it out, and then extrude and pull it out. And you created the form that way so that then you could go back and make adjustments to it. Now you can do it after the fact. So you can actually come in, get a block, grab one of the faces and pull that out and go, okay, it needs to be about this long, but then I want it to kind of grow in the center. Get that tool, holding down Control, I create these 3 loops, grab the edges, double click, and now I can do exactly what I just did over there. And I can also look at it and go, you know, but I really don't want this to be hard on the edges over here. So I want to grab these edges and soften all of them. Mesh display, soften edge. So it gets that rounded form, except right here and right here, I want those to be hard edge. Mesh display, harden edge. And my ends I want to be hard edge. So I've already got those left as hard edge. And now it changes the visual appearance of this. So play around with the new tools, have fun, and you know, just keep playing with it. The more you play and the more you explore, the more you're going to learn, honestly. So don't be worried about breaking anything. Go ahead, break stuff. Have fun with it so that you can learn.